The Waitakere Ranges are a conservation and recreational area a short drive to the west of Auckland. Like most areas of New Zealand, the Waitakere Ranges has a pre-1840 history of native habitation. The Auckland Council has proposed co-governance for the Waitakere Ranges, at this stage between the nation-state of New Zealand and the Te Kaurau-a-Maki tribe from Aotearoa. The details of that proposal are important, but I'll get back to that shortly. The presently accepted historical inhabitants of the area come down to two tribes. They both receive taxpayer-funded Crown settlements following claims made to the Waitangi Tribunal. Te Kaurau-a-Maki tribe settled in February 2014 and Ngāti Whātua in September 2011. These settlements were supposed to be full and final. A third tribe were involved prior to 1840. They're our old friends, the warmongers from Ngāpuhi. During the Musket Wars, Ngāpuhi forced the two weaker tribes to abandon their habitation of the Waitakere Ranges and retreat to the Waikato after getting a hiding worse than Rawili Waiatiti with a weed eater. The history of land acquisition by the Crown is a patchwork of purchases in the area. Between 1853 and 1854, the Crown purchased about 100,000 acres. Between 1920 and 1951, the Crown took responsibility for fragments of the ranges under the Public Works Act, often for purposes such as sand dune reclamation and conservation. The Public Works Act at the time required compensation for compulsory land acquisitions. In the mid-1960s, titles were individualised, and this led many owners of native titles to partition off and sell their land. In 2008, a Labour government passed the Waitakere Ranges Heritage Area Act. This law was aimed at conservation and heritage protection. The Act did not authorise co-governance of the Waitakere Ranges as an exception to the Queen's Westminster governance mandated by the Treaty of Waitangi. And there is no provision in any treaty settlement for co-governance of the land with any of the native tribes who claim an interest in the area. The co-governance proposed by the Auckland City Council is illegal on first principles of public law and a breach of the Treaty of Waitangi, which again mandates the Queen's Westminster governance, not governance under a form of oxymoronic shared sovereignty. New Zealand First has promised to intervene to stop the proposed co-governance arrangement. The ACT Party has also condemned the proposal. Both parties see the co-governance proposal for what it is, an example of neo-Marxist ideology, constantly picking at the threads, tearing at the fabric of our society, and undermining fundamental democratic values of equal representation and universal suffrage. Te Kaurau-a-Maki Chief Executive Edward Ashby has denied that the proposed co-governance is co-governance. However, that is a patently false claim. Ashby is gaslighting the public about what is being proposed. In defence of the neo-Marxist agenda, Ashby cited the Waitakere Ranges Heritage Area Act, but without mentioning how this act related to or authorised co-governance. In fact, the Act does not relate to co-governance and does not authorise any such thing. Ashby claimed the deed would identify opportunities for his tribe to contribute to the management of the public land. Of course, this is just euphemising. Contributing is being vested with authority, and management is governance. So what Ashby is trying to fool us with is Orwellian doublethink. On the one hand, the proposed deed gives this tribe the authority to co-govern the Waitakere Ranges alongside the state of New Zealand, but on the other hand it doesn't. The former is true, and the latter is false. The proposal is to establish a joint committee under the Local Government Act with equal representation from the state of New Zealand and a native tribe from Aotearoa, in this case Te Kaurau-a-Maki. That means that governance will be, at least initially, split between New Zealand and a communist aristocratic tribal entity. Now, Ashby wants to close down up to a third of the Waitakere Ranges, so even though claiming that the deed is not about co-governance, Ashby's stated intention is to make rules about shutting down parts of the ranges. Making rules is governing. That, by definition, is co-governance. It is ceding to a communist tribal cooperative the sovereign authority to rule a defined territory, namely the Waitakere Ranges. Now back to where I said that this proposal was in its initial form. This is where the real danger can be clearly identified. Remember that the Maki tribe from Aotearoa are a 50% co-governor with the state of New Zealand. The ongoing negotiations involving another tribe, Ngāti Whātua, and possibly more tribes in the future, for example Ngāpuhi, is signposting the clear and inherent danger of going down the road of co-governance on any land and in any shape or form. With each hapu representing, as Shane Jones put it, a micro-state, Co-governance will amount to sovereignty between the nation-state of New Zealand and any number of native tribes who at some time in history claim to have buried a dead guy around here somewhere. Each of the tribes is claiming co-governance with the Crown alongside all the other co-governing tribes. This is not a case of the Crown on one side and a single pan-Maori entity on the other. This is co-governance by an unlimited amount of alleged stakeholder tribal entities. Now, if anyone thinks that the Maki tribe will allow their present 50% stake to be diluted to admit Ngāti Whātua into the tribal council, think again. And likewise, if Ngāpui stake a claim, that will without doubt reduce the state of New Zealand's sway in the tribal council. It doesn't take a genius to work out where all that leads to. Under this co-governance framework, our democracy will quickly become a patchwork of political unions between the white tribe and the various brown tribes. And that's not even remotely what the Treaty of Waitangi was supposed to do. That's not even remotely what democracy is. And that's not even remotely what the Queen's Westminster system of governance mandated by the Treaty of Waitangi is. Instead, the proposed co-governance is surrendering sovereignty to any number of succinct communist tribal aristocracies, while it denies all New Zealanders the Queen's Westminster system of governance mandated by the Treaty of Waitangi. What is happening with the co-governance push in the Waitakere Ranges is the same modus operandi used by the Tauranga City Council to give away the sovereignty of tens of millions of dollars of ratepayers' resources known as the Te Papa Block. There's a video about that queued up at the end of this report. This is another prime example of why we need to ensure that the radical left are kept out of local body government in New Zealand's regional and district councils. Local body politics is being targeted by the radical left in New Zealand because they've seen just how effective this has been overseas in destroying Britain's democratic local body system. Here in New Zealand, just 36% of ratepayers voted in local body elections in 2022. Well, 36% is a gold-plated invitation to radical left neo-Marxists. It's an opportunity too good for them to miss, and they haven't. We need to get off the couch on that cold, rainy, windy spring morning in October and vote for the restoration of our democracy. We need to vote down Maori wards and vote against candidates who solicit unelected tribal aristocracies into co-governance. Should we be reforming the Local Government Act 2002 to stop it being misused to create co-governance with communist tribal groups that long ago freely sold their British native land titles granted to them under the Treaty of Waitangi? Why is it that we are paying staggering sums of taxpayer money to settle ostensibly once and for all time native grievances, while continuously surrendering more and more to tikanga, the Maori customary practice of tribal intergenerational grievance harbouring and retribution seeking? If the Waitangi Tribunal cannot fundamentally change the tikanga mindset of persistent intergenerational grievance harbouring and retribution seeking, should it be abolished? What's the point of trying to settle disputes with a party whose customary ideology does not include res judicata? Should the New Zealand Crown and Europeans be relegated to just another tribe of arrivals vying for control of the land along with all the other tribes? Is that what the Treaty of Waitangi means, that sovereign subjects are just another tribe? And if so, why is the sovereign subject tribe paying for the upkeep of the treaty subject tribes? Will we be able to rely on New Zealand First and the ACT Party to enforce once and for all that we are a free, liberal Western democracy and not a communist aristocracy based on Maori tribalism? Leave a comment, shout out to Shane Jones and New Zealand First for stepping into the breach on this one. Thanks for watching, give us a like would ya, and do hit subscribe to be notified of new content as it drops. See you next time.